proper shoes. Start with the shoes. Something that covers your feet. A boot's great. You know, the Romeo type things are great. The tennis shoes are fine. A little difference if you're using synthetic material on your shoes out in here. We can have issues if we're doing welding activities, because the slag and things will hit the shoes, melt right through them and in between the toes. So I'd have to watch out for that when we're out in this area. In the wood shop, it's not nearly as big a deal because we don't have to worry about hot slag hitting the feet. But you do want to cover your feet appropriately to be working out there. Give you a good stable position to stand on and protect the toes. Pants. Ideally, you should have pants on when you're working in the shops. I had nothing with a cuff that could catch things. Ideally, nothing with tears on the pants that could get caught on the equipment, moving parts, belts and things. Again, that would be the same thing with shirts. Anything that's long, you need to have buttoned so that they're around your wrists, or short sleeves is great. Rolled up above the elbow is fine. T-shirts, fine. Little different things occur again when we're out in the metal shop working with some hot metals. We'll talk about that at a little different time. Any strings on jackets should be tucked in and out of the way, right? Jewelry should be taken off and put in your pocket. Long hair should be tied back behind your head. You can wear hats to pull your hair back and get it out of the way if you want to. It's a good thing to wear hats when working in the metal shop on certain activities as well. You know, again, hot slag bouncing or sparks bouncing on top of your head, it's kind of nice to have a hat up there. We don't want, I'll go back to the welding a little bit later. So, proper shoes, proper pants, proper shirt. Then of course, we have to dress a little more appropriately with certain protective equipment. They call personal protective equipment, PPE stuff. That would be safety goggles for sure. Anytime you walk through that door or into the other door, you should have safety goggles on all the time. We wear them underneath masks. You don't just have them only, when you're walking around the shop. But if you're using welding, you would wear a mask over the top of that that's shaded. Well, it doesn't take the place of these. Things will go over the top of the masks and come down inside, so you still have to have something to protect your eyes with that. All right, so dress appropriately, wear the appropriate safety goggles. Now, anything that's got if you guys have your own at home, a lot of you have parents that work around this type of stuff, and they'll get goggles for free. That's fine. They have to say Z87 on the side of them. That'd indicate that it's a safety goggle and not just something for fun, or sunglasses. Sunglasses are not the same as safety goggles. Okay, they are not. So you have to look for that number if you need to.
87?
Z87, I think, is the number. Now, when we're walking, we have to behave appropriately in there too. That's a huge thing, is just how you walk and act in the shop. It's not that I expect people to, well, you probably don't even realize it, that what you're doing can affect somebody else somewhere else in the shop. We've all run up behind somebody and yelled at the back of their head. Well, maybe if they're in the locker room and you do that, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. But if you startle somebody that's using a piece of equipment because you yelled at the back of somebody's head as a joke, well, then that becomes a big problem, right? They get startled using a piece of equipment, they could get hurt. So, just even yelling and screaming or something along that lines can be detrimental to somebody, even if it's not the one you're actually talking with. Of course, you would never do that with somebody using a piece of equipment. You never walk up to them, behind them, and startle them or bug them. In fact, every piece of equipment has something we call the safety zone. And although the lines aren't very well marked in here at this point due to time and things being moved around, but safety zone is really an area around each piece of equipment that gives the operator plenty of room to be able to work and do their job without being interfered. So if he was using the bandsaw, for example, and that's the bandsaw he's standing next to, I wouldn't stand right here beside him to watch. You know, that's inside that safety zone. You need to back up out of the way so it doesn't interfere with that. And now we'll get to that a little bit later. So running, pushing, shoving, horseplay kind of goes without saying. It's not okay in a shop. If you trip and fall, you're not landing on a carpet, you're landing on concrete. We want to, so you know, just don't run and yell and scream while you're in there on those things. Carrying tools is another thing in the shop that people don't always realize are an issue. Things like screwdrivers and chisels and things have nice pointy ends, and typically people will walk through the shop, or sometimes without knowing it, you know, kind of like Rambo rather than how it should be. And it's not that I'd expect anybody to hit somebody with it, but it's not an uncommon thing with a lot of people in a shop that you're walking by somebody and they turn to do something and step right in front of you. So we carry anything that's sharp or pointed in front of you, pointed down, rather than like a knife going through the jungle. So sharp objects held in front of you, pointed down. Want to use every tool appropriately. I would never use this for a screwdriver, even if it fit in there. You don't use a flathead screwdriver for a chisel. You use the appropriate tools for the appropriate job for what we're doing. If you find a tool that is broken or dull, bring it to me. Don't try to fix it yourself unless you've been shown how to. And that would, you know, I might say that a chisel is something that I'd want you to learn how to sharpen before you sharpened it. If you sharpen the wrong edge, not knowing, it'll take us a week to get it back to where it should be. And sharp tools work way better than dull tools. Okay? When you have a good sharp tool, it's nice to do the work. When they're dull, it can be a problem when you're going through there. So use the appropriate tools for the job. We have some fire hazards as well in the shop. Anything that's oil based will catch or can burn pretty readily. And some of the finishes we use, if they get on paper, that paper becomes a lot more flammable. In some cases, some of the material that we use can spontaneously combust. You know what that means?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we have to take extra care using those kinds of things. I always put paper down when I'm finishing something because the tables are pretty bad shape, some of them. So we've got these rolls of white paper in the shop, and I'll pull that out and cut a piece off and set it down and do my finishing on that. And I hate cleaning brushes because I never seem to get them clean. So, you know, when I'm done with that, I'm going to throw it away. But it's got finish on it. Rags, of course, paper towels. We use all these kinds of things. They kind of interfere, or they get to the point where I'm ready to get rid of them at some time, right? So I've got all this finish on them. We have, but they are now far more flammable than they would be had we have, or just had them normally. A paintbrush is not going to catch fire on its own. If it's got this finish on it, we have a problem. We could have a problem. So these kinds of things, when we're throwing them away, we have to be a little more careful with. One of them is to throw these into an appropriate garbage can. In this case, we have red garbage cans we have one in here and one in the wood shop for putting that in. They're metal, so they won't burn. They have a lid on them, so they will choke out a fire if it does start inside. And they sit off the ground a little bit just to keep the heat from transferring into the ground. So we've got those things to contain a fire if it were to happen. Rags that have the finish on it can also be hung over an open area. Like I've got some clamps in there, the bar clamps that are on the table. Sometimes I'll hang those rags over the top of them, drape them, open them up and drape them over the top. And once the chemical reaction has finished, completed its cycle, it's not flammable to the point of spontaneous combustion anymore, and we can get rid of it. So we can do those kinds of things too, but we just have to be really conscious of the material we're using and how we need to dispose of the items that have that material on it now. Best way to know, if you're not sure, look on the back of the can and read it. If it says flammable, we have to be careful with it, right? When you carry objects through the shop, I know a lot of the stuff we have is not that heavy. It's pretty light, but we can have some really long stuff. So even if it's lightweight but it's long, you should have 2 people carrying it in the shop, 1 at each end. Because if you're carrying it in the middle, you can only watch one end. So while you go up and are watching to make sure this end doesn't hit this guy, this end comes over and hits this guy right in the face. So you have 2 people carry it. Obviously, very heavy items, you'd get help as well. When we stack stuff on the shelves, we want to stack stuff with the heavy items on the bottom, the heavy and large items on the bottom, working up with the lighter items to keep a balance on the shelves that we're working with. Did you have a question?
Yes. What happens if it's something sharp around the edges?
Well, we could wear gloves. I mean, when we handle sheet metal, you do want to wear gloves because you can get cut pretty easily with sheet metal walking through the shop. Some people take vice grips and grip the sheet metal with it and carry it that way, you know, by the vice grip rather than just the sheet metal itself, which is nice. But yeah, you'd wear gloves so you don't get cut. Let's see, we've talked a little bit about how you dress out there, also horseplay. I didn't mention this. If you're going to lift something heavy, there's that old saying you probably all know, I'll just repeat it. Lift with your legs, not with your back. Right. Okay, so any heavy items, make sure you lift with your legs in that aspect. Keep your back straight as you move it up. We want to make sure all the tools get put back at the end of the period. Messes on the floor get picked up. Better to do it immediately than to wait towards the end of the day, because people will trip and fall on these things piled up all around the shop. So a clean shop is a far safer place to work than a dirty shop. Okay? And then on equipment, know how to use a piece of equipment. Be shown first how to use a piece of equipment or a power tool before you actually use one. Okay? Some of them are fairly simple. Some of them will take some time to go over. And that's probably where we would start in on doing these things. What would you like to do? Anybody from this point? Because now we could talk about each individual tool. How would you guys like to do that now?
Well, who's interested in mechanics that doesn't already know how to use mechanics?
We could do some basic tools first and walk through that. Is that what you guys would like to do? We could do some of the basic ones that we have in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
So let's walk down the wood shop and we'll do some good there.